Back in 2018, I started to play in Shadowverse tournaments, and within that same year, I managed to qualify for World Grand Prix. So when Dai and Sai, my teammates from Team Revelation, suggested that we try out to qualify for the Prince Cup, the biggest Genius Invocation TCG tournament with a $60,000 cash prize, a part of me was thinking, hey, maybe we can do it again. I wanted to come out of nowhere and beat veterans at this game. So to qualify for the Prince Cup, the last chance was a wildcard. For Europe, there was 128 players, and I needed to win 4 games of single elimination in small groups of 16 players to be able to play in the Swiss tournament in day 2, or you would just need to win 3 rounds out of 5 to qualify for the main event. So with only 2 weeks to prepare, I challenged myself to try to qualify for the Prince Cup. However, as me and my teammates were preparing for the event, a disaster happened. A few days before the tournament, they completely nerfed the broken Jet engine, which was the core engine of all of my 3 decks. I had to throw away 2 weeks of preparation, and now there is no way to know what the meta will be like for the tournament. On top of that, the tournament would be 1 day after the patch, including 4 new characters, nerfing all of the current meta cards and introducing new cards. So only 1 day to prepare for all of that. It was crazy conditions. Looking for solutions, I tried to ask someone from the Shadowverse community that was playing Genshin TCG regularly to help me with the list. So I sent a DM to Asakura, who was playing in my group but was a contact of Sai. I was hoping he would help me anyway to find decks that were playable with our Jet, but he answered, no. I trained a lot to get these decks, I'm not sharing them, especially with a competitor. And of course, this decision makes sense, but in my head I was like, okay, if I play against you, I'm definitely never losing to you. Now this wasn't a question about money or about anger, it was about pride. So I did some research in Chinese tournaments, I digged to get decks from the past metas, and hope for the best. Now this is Friday, the day of the single elimination rounds. This was a ban format, and it turned out that everyone was banning the same deck, the Mona Eula Wanderer, a deck that can attack your back row, that can just keep on attacking. It's very hard to play against. So I just banned it every time, and my opponents were doing the same. On round 1 I faced a beginner, they were just playing their favorite characters, so it was a stomp. But on round 2, who is my opponent? You guessed it, Asakura. So now it is time for karma to strike. Game 1. On turn 1 I get the food that says, your next 3 normal attacks cost -1 dice, so using that I was able to fully load the Yelan's Burst on turn 1. On turn 2 he uses the Overload reaction to kick out Yelan, but I'm able to find the timing to replay her, and after that I get fully freeze his team and get the win. Game 2 is a mirror match of Liney, Fischl and Naida. I started with Fischl, but I started with Liney. Even if it wasn't the best choice, objectively speaking, it does create a disparity. We are not doing exactly the same thing at the same time, so maybe you won't be able to completely predict my pattern. I open with 2 ramp cards, so I know I have to plan to try to win on turn 3 when I will have a lot of dices. On turn 2 it goes for the charge skill of Naida, that costs 5 dices, so that all of my characters will take damage whenever a reaction is triggered. I decide to sacrifice Fischl, that had only 2 HP, and because I already had the Oz on board. On turn 3 I prepare Naida's burst, but they use a Scatrin, which allows him to quick swap, so swap a character without losing the action, to swap to his Naida and kill my Naida before I get the burst. But when Naida takes the damage, I top deck a 0 cost food card, but I can play on Liney to get some more dices, thanks to Chef Mao's effect. This way, Liney is able to attack 3 times and clear the game. 2-0 win, and at least the honor is safe. If you are still here, please take a moment to leave a like on this video, it really helps the channel. Thank you. But now this is round 3. I'm playing against a guy named Walter White, I don't know if it's a reference or something, and we are both playing a Yelan Signora deck, but instead of Thunderbird, he runs Yutao. The first player that gets the Yelan Burst can use Signora's normal attack to instantly freeze every other opponent card, so there's definitely quite some tension. So we both load up Yelan's Burst super fast, but then I had an idea. What if I quick swap into Signora and freeze his Yelan so that he doesn't get the burst? On the next turn I swap back to Yelan, but then he also has a quick swap and freezes my Yelan. The other thing about this deck is that he's running a new engine, where he shuffles 0 PP dices into his deck and then play a support card that lets him draw a card every time he plays the last card of his hand. So just like that, he's able to get a lot more dices than me, and in the end, he's the first one to play the Yelan Burst. But thankfully, he doesn't have the second quick swap, and I can use my Yelan's Burst on the same turn. After that, he uses Signora's Burst, which turns her into a Pyro character instead of a Cryo character, so he cannot freeze my Signora. That allows me to freeze all of his characters, and I make sure to hold on to Signora's Burst to keep my ability to freeze. Then I'm the one starting on turn 3, so it becomes a 3-on-1 and I win the game. Game 2, I tried my best to try to kill the Signora with my summons every Naida, but once again he has that endless strategy, and is able to heal a lot, and have a lot more dices, and I just struggle to keep up. I kill Yelan, but he has already used a burst, so I pass the turn expecting to win on next turn. He has only 2 HP characters, but then he manages to just keep on top decking and top decking more and more 0PP dice, and just like that with Utao is able to deal 16 damage in one turn. And I was like, what the fuck, man? What the fuck? And then for game 3, he's playing a stall decks with Layla and Barbara, and I know that against stall, you need to break one of the characters as soon as possible. Most of our effects is to heal all of the characters, so the less characters they have, the less value it has. And then they cannot do a lot of damage in a one-on-one situation. But sadly, I get pretty bad draws, I have no ways to reduce my Gilded Dreams, the artifact that gets me more dices, and I miss an occasion to kill Layla, the cryo character. And then on turn 4, I get wrecked. He plays a Furina event, Judgment, that blocks the next 3 event cards I would play this turn. And because the food cards I have to deal more damage are events, I cannot play them. So I'm 1 damage of killing Barbara, and he gets to heal all of his characters for 4. Until the end I tried to keep hope. My Lightning was able to heal a lot with his skill, but sadly on the last round, he manages to freeze my Lightning. So even if I had a lot of dices, I couldn't finish him. And just like that, I get eliminated from the wildcard. So, what did we learn in the end? Genius Invocation TCG is actually a pretty fun game. It reminds me a lot of Pokemon, where you have to position your things at the right timing in order to get the good reactions or deny the reaction from your opponent. You just remove the whole anticipation aspect and put cards instead. I think it's also cool that your main game plan is on the board at the start of the game, and that the luck tied to the draw has a limited impact. Except for Quick Swap. I hate Quick Swap. On a more bittersweet note, having only 1 day of preparation after a big patch is really fucked up. I think a veteran player would know how to adapt with their large knowledge of the game, but I couldn't. I barely played until level 10. So it makes sense that I didn't pass. Maybe if it wasn't single elimination, I would have time to learn from my mistakes, play weaker opponents, and maybe get away with only 1 or 2 losses, but maybe that's just my ego speaking. I think I would definitely play another tournament of this game in better conditions. I'll be keeping an eye on events for next year. At least, I did better than Sai. He got eliminated on the first round.